Rain pattered softly against the window of my modest Richmond apartment, a steady rhythm that felt like a countdown. I sat at my kitchen counter, a mug of chamomile tea gone cold in my hands, staring at the laptop screen. A new email had just landed in my inbox, its subject line slicing through the quiet. Hadley Family Vineyard Reunion, 2023. RSVP now. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I gazed out at the maple trees, their leaves a fiery red trembling under the drizzle. 10 years. 10 years since I'd last been invited to a family gathering without it being a mistake or a half-hearted apology. They called me too sensitive, too busy, too detached. But the truth was simpler. I was the spare piece in their perfect family puzzle. I'm Lena Hadley, 36, marketing director for a tech startup in Richmond. Successful, independent, and according to my mother, always too caught up in work to care about family. But this email wasn't an invitation. It was a wound, sent to me by mistake in a long CC chain. I clicked it, not out of hope, but because I needed to confirm what I already knew. The recipient list included everyone: my older sister, Clara, my brother, Ethan, Aunt June, even our cousin Theo, who hadn't shown up since he fought with Dad over an unpaid loan. But my name, Lena Hadley, was nowhere in the original list. Not in the greeting, not in the plans. They were holding the reunion at the Hadley Vineyard estate, the sprawling property Dad always bragged about, where I used to chase fireflies through the grapevines as a kid, back when I thought I belonged. I scrolled down, skimming the enthusiastic replies. Clara wrote, "Can't wait to sip wine by the fire pit." Ethan chimed in, "Just don't let Theo bring that cheap bourbon again." There was even a photo attached. The vineyard in autumn, rows of vines glowing under golden light. The stone fire pit where I'd once sketched the sunset at age 9, before I learned that love in the Hadley family came with strings and expiration dates. I snapped the laptop shut, refusing to reply. The apartment felt too still, the silence broken only by the rain and my own uneven breathing. My eyes drifted to a small wooden box on the bookshelf, carved with a grapevine pattern, a birthday gift from Grandma when I was 10. She'd said, "Lena, you're the strongest vine in this family. Don't let them forget it." But they had forgotten. Or worse, they'd chosen to erase me. My phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. An unknown number? Local area code. I hesitated, then answered. Lena Hadley speaking. The voice on the other end was low, familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. "Lena, it's me. Amos Reed." I nearly dropped the phone. Amos Reed, the former caretaker of the Hadley Vineyard, who'd left 15 years ago after a bitter falling out with my father. His name was taboo in our family, like a ghost we'd all agreed to ignore. "Amos, how did you get my number?" He chuckled, a dry sound like rustling leaves. "Heard about the reunion? Thought it was time you knew a few things about that vineyard. Meet me tomorrow morning. The coffee shop on Main Street. You'll want to hear this." I didn't respond right away. Amos was a shadow from my childhood, a man who'd once been like an uncle before he was erased from our story. Something in his tone, calm but urgent, made it impossible to refuse. "All right," I said. "Nina." After hanging up, I glanced at the wooden box again. Inside, I knew there was a folded note from Grandma, one I'd never opened because she'd told me, "Only read it when you feel like you've lost everything." I wasn't ready to open it yet, but for the first time in years, I felt a spark not of hope, but of resolve. The coffee shop on Main Street was a warm haven, its air thick with the scent of roasted beans and damp wool, a stark contrast to the gray drizzle outside. I arrived early, securing a corner table by the window. My fingers brushed the wooden grapevine box I'd brought from home, now tucked in my bag, a small anchor from Grandma. Though I wasn't sure why I'd felt compelled to carry it. The bell above the door chimed, and Amos Reed stepped in. He was older than my childhood memories, his face etched like the weathered oak barrels in the vineyard's cellar. His flannel shirt and scuffed boots clashed with the sleek barista's, but his eyes held the same piercing clarity I remembered. He nodded, ordered a black coffee, and sat across from me without small talk. "Lena," he said, voice low, "you've got your grandmother's fire." "Always did." I offered a tight smile. "Thanks, Amos. But you didn't call me here for nostalgia. What's going on with the vineyard?" He sipped his coffee, studying me. I worked for your family 20 years. Planted those vines. Mended fences. Kept the place breathing. Your dad and I were like brothers until we weren't. When I left, it wasn't just a fight. It was about a promise your grandmother made. My heart picked up. What promise? Amos pulled a faded envelope from his jacket, its edges yellowed with age, and slid it across the table. This is a copy of a letter your grandma wrote me before she passed. She saw your family splitting apart even then. She set up a trust for the vineyard, one your parents never fully grasped, and she named you as the beneficiary? I froze, staring at the envelope. Me? Why didn't she tell me? She wanted you to find your own strength first, Amos said. The trust has a clause. If the vineyard's upkeep fails taxes unpaid, maintenance neglected, the title reverts to you. Your parents stopped paying property taxes 2 years ago. They're in default. Lena, that vineyard's yours if you claim it. His words sank like a stone in still water. I opened the envelope with unsteady hands. Grandma's elegant script confirmed everything. With a postscript. Lena will know when the time is right. Guide her if I'm gone? Attached was a notarized trust document. My name bold on the page as the beneficiary of the Hadley Vineyard Trust? Why now? I whispered. Why tell me just before their reunion? Amos's face hardened. They're planning to sell the vineyard. Quietly. No family announcement. I heard it from a realtor friend last week. They're unloading it to cover debts, mostly your brother Ethan's failed restaurant ventures. But there's more. He leaned closer. Someone else is circling the property. A developer. Vincent Cole. Claims he has a prior stake. Vincent Cole. The name was unfamiliar. Who is he? No one knows much, Amos said. Showed up a month ago with supposed documents from a deal your grandfather made decades ago. Could be a fraud. Could be legit. But if you don't act, Lena, you'll lose the vineyard to him or your family's sale. The coffee shop's warmth felt suffocating. The vineyard wasn't just land, it was where I'd learned to weave grapevines with Grandma, where Dad once taught me constellations before he started dodging my calls. Now it was at risk because of my family's negligence and a stranger's ambition. My phone pinged, cutting through the haze. A text from my best friend, Maya. Saw the reunion email. You good. Want me to crash it and accidentally spill wine on Clara's dress? I smiled faintly. Typing back? Tempting. But I might have a bigger move in mind. I looked at Amos. What's my next step? Get a lawyer, he said. Someone sharp with trusts and property law. I know Marla Kent, she's handled disputes like this. But move fast. The reunion's in 2 weeks, and the sale could close any day. As Amos stood to leave, he rested a hand on my shoulder. Your grandma always said you'd keep those vines alive. Don't prove her wrong. Back home, I paced my apartment, the trust document glaring from the kitchen counter. I called Marla Kent, who agreed to meet tomorrow. Then I found the vineyard's listing on a discreet real estate site. Historic Virginia Vineyard. 50 acres. Ideal for development. No mention of its history. Just a cold sales pitch. My stomach twisted. This was where I'd carved my initials into a barn beam at age 10. Where Mom once called me her little vintner before she started praising Clara as her star. Another email hit my inbox. Forwarded by mistake from Clara. Core Hadley reunion. Final plans. I opened it. Already braced. The thread was a knife. Room assignments. Wine tasting schedules. A family charades night, no trace of me. Maya sent a screenshot from a group chat I wasn't in. Lena's not coming. Thank God. Let's keep it drama-free. Clara wrote. Ethan added a laughing emoji. And Aunt June typed, that girl's always thought she's above us. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. They weren't just leaving me out, they were rewriting me. Turning my absence into a flaw. I remembered the summer I was 12. When I'd spent hours painting a mural on the vineyard's barn wall. The family admired it. But Clara stepped forward, smiling for photos. She's so artistic, Mom said. I didn't correct her. That night, I hid in the loft while they toasted Clara's vision. The doorbell rang at 8:30 p.m., jarring me. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a tailored coat, clutching a leather briefcase, a boardroom figure out of place in my modest complex. Lena Hadley, he said when I cracked the door. Chain lock still on. I'm Vincent Cole. I believe you've heard of me. My pulse spiked. The developer Amos warned about. Here. What do you want? I asked. Voice steady. He smiled. Cold and calculated. I'm interested in the Hadley Vineyard. I have claim documents from a deal your grandfather signed in the 70s. I'd like to discuss a partnership before things get messy. Messy how? I said, gripping the door. Let's say I'd rather work with you than against you, he replied, sliding a business card through the gap. Call me soon. Time's running out. He left, his footsteps fading. I locked the door, heart racing, and stared at the card. Vincent Cole was no longer a rumor, he was a threat. My family's recklessness had unleashed. I glanced at the trust document, then Grandma's grapevine box. This wasn't just about reclaiming my place, it was about protecting what was mine. The vineyard's cellar door was half hidden behind a tangle of overgrown vines, its rusted hinges groaning as Maya and I pried it open. The air inside was cool and musty, carrying the faint sweetness of aged oak and earth. My flashlight beam danced across cobwebbed shelves, illuminating rows of dusty wine bottles and stacks of wooden crates. The brass key, etched with cellar, 1968, felt warm in my hand, a small pulse of certainty amid the uncertainty. You sure about this? Maya asked, her voice echoing slightly. She held her phone's flashlight aloft, casting long shadows. This place gives me horror movie vibes. I forced a smile. If Vincent Cole's after something down here, I need to find it first. And if Grandma hid records, they're our best shot at securing the vineyard. We stepped deeper, the stone floor slick underfoot. The cellar was larger than I remembered, a maze of narrow passages lined with barrels. My childhood memories of hide and seek here were hazy, overshadowed by the weight of what we might uncover. The key had to fit something, a lockbox, a cabinet, maybe a hidden compartment Grandma trusted more than the family safe upstairs. We split up to cover more ground, Maya taking the left passage while I headed right. My beam caught a small alcove, partially obscured by a rotting tarp. Behind it was a metal cabinet, its lock engraved with a vine pattern matching the key. My heart raced as I inserted the key. It turned with a satisfying click. Inside were files yellowed, brittle, but meticulously organized. Deeds, tax records, letters, all stamped with the vineyard's crest. I sifted through them, finding the original 1968 purchase agreement signed by Grandpa. But something else caught my eye. A handwritten ledger, its pages filled with Grandma's script. It wasn't just financial, it was a chronicle of the vineyard's history and the family's. One entry, dated 1975, stopped me cold, gave Amos power of attorney for the trust setup. John's gambling debts are worse than he admits. If the vineyard's at risk, Amos will protect it for Lena. John was my grandfather. I'd heard whispers of his gambling, but never this. Grandma had planned for me even then, decades before I'd need it. Another document, tucked in the back, was a letter addressed to me, sealed with wax. I broke it open, my hands trembling. Lena, if you're reading this, you've found the heart of the vineyard. Your grandfather made a mistake, a deal with a man named Victor Coleman in '73. It was meant to clear his debts, but it gave Coleman a partial claim to the land. I buried it to protect the family. If his kin come calling, use the trust. You're the only one I trust to keep this place whole. Victor Coleman. Vincent Cole. The names were too close to be coincidence. Cole's claim wasn't a bluff. He was tied to a decades-old deal my family had erased from their story, just like they'd erased me. Lena, Maya's voice echoed from the other passage. You need to see this. I stuffed the letter and ledger into my bag and ran to her. She was kneeling by a crate, holding a small, locked diary. It was wedged behind some bottles. She said, Has your mom's initials E.H. Evelyn Hadley. My mother. I took the diary, its leather cover worn but intact. The lock was flimsy. A quick pry with Maya's pocket knife popped it open. Inside were entries from the late 90s. When I was a teenager, one passage, dated 1999, hit like a punch. Lena's too much like her grandmother, stubborn, always questioning. Clara's easier to manage. Ethan's predictable. If we're going to keep the vineyard's image perfect, Lena's got to stop stirring things up. Maybe distance is best. I sat back on the cold floor, the words burning. My mother hadn't just excluded me, she'd planned it, deliberately pushing me out to maintain the family's polished facade. Maya put a hand on my shoulder. She's wrong. You know, you're not the problem. They are. I nodded. But the hurt lingered. The diary. The ledger. The letter, they were pieces of a puzzle my family had scattered, hoping I'd never find them. But I had, and now I held the truth they'd buried. As we packed the documents, a noise echoed from the cellar entrance, a faint scrape, like boots on stone. Maya froze. Did you hear that? I switched off my flashlight, plunging us into darkness. My pulse thundered as I whispered, "Stay quiet." The sound grew closer, deliberate footsteps, not the casual tread of a vineyard worker. I gripped the key, its edges biting into my palm. A beam of light swept the passage, narrowly missing us. Then a voice, low and familiar. "She's here somewhere. Find her." Vincent Cole. He hadn't just followed me, he'd brought someone. Maya grabbed my arm, pulling me behind a barrel. The footsteps stopped, replaced by a faint murmur. Then silence. After what felt like an eternity, the light retreated, and the cellar door creaked shut. We waited, barely breathing. Before creeping to the entrance, the vineyard was empty, Cole's SUV gone. But on the cellar door, scratched into the wood, was a single word. Mine. Maya cursed under her breath. That guy's unhinged. We need to get these documents to Marla. Now. I nodded, my mind racing. Cole wasn't just a legal threat, he was dangerous. And he knew I was closing in on his claim's roots. But the diary and ledger gave me leverage. Not just against him, but against my family. Back in Richmond, I handed the documents to Marla, who raised an eyebrow at the diary. "This is personal, Lena, but it's also evidence of intent to exclude you. Combined with the trust and ledger, it strengthens your case." She flipped to the letter about Victor Coleman. "This is the real gold. If Cole's claim is tied to this 1973 deal, we can challenge its validity, especially since your grandmother nullified it with the trust." "What about Cole's behavior?" I asked, describing the cellar incident. "He's stalking me." Marla's expression darkened. "File a police report. But don't expect much without hard proof. I'll request a restraining order and expedite the title transfer. The reunion's in 6 days, be ready for pushback." That night, I sat with Maya at my apartment, the grapevine box open between us. I finally unsealed Grandma's note from years ago, the one she'd said to open when I felt I'd lost everything. It was short, but it cut deep. "Lena, family isn't always blood. It's who fights for you when the world turns cold. You're my fighter. Save the vineyard. Not for them, but for you." Tears pricked my eyes. But they weren't for sadness. They were for clarity. Grandma had seen this coming, my family's betrayal, the vineyard's peril, even my own strength. I wasn't just reclaiming land. I was reclaiming myself. My phone buzzed with a new email from the reunion thread. This time from Ethan. "Master Suite's mine. Can't wait to kick back." No mention of me. No hint they knew the vineyard was slipping from their grasp. I forwarded it to Marla with a single line. "They're still clueless. Move forward." The vineyard's rolling hills glowed under the late afternoon sun as I pulled into the estate's gravel drive, 3 days before the reunion. Marla's petition to transfer the vineyard's title was in motion, but the silence from my family was deafening. They were still planning their charades and wine tastings, oblivious to the legal storm brewing. I'd come to meet Amos for a final walkthrough of the property, to ensure no surprises awaited when I claimed it. Maya was on her way, but I'd arrived early, needing a moment to ground myself in the place that held both my heart and my wounds. I stepped out of the car, the air rich with the scent of ripening grapes and damp soil. The barn's faded mural, my teenage handiwork, stared back like a ghost. I was halfway to the main house when a familiar figure emerged from the tasting room. Aunt June, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun, her expression a mix of surprise and disdain. "Lena," she said, voice sharp. "What are you doing here? The reunion's not until Friday." I straightened, meeting her gaze. "Just checking on the vineyard. It's been a while." Her eyes narrowed. "Checking. You've never cared about this place. Always off in your fancy city job. Ignoring your roots?" The accusation stung, but I kept my voice even. "Funny. I thought ignoring me was the family's specialty. My name's been off every invite for a decade." June's lips pursed. But before she could respond, another car crunched up the drive, an unfamiliar sedan. Out stepped Vincent Cole, his tailored coat pristine, a smirk playing on his lips. My stomach dropped. What was he doing here? With June? Miss Hadley, Cole said, nodding at me. And Mrs. Carver. I see we're all getting an early start. June's face flushed, but she didn't look surprised to see him. Mr. Cole is consulting on the Vineyard's future, she said, avoiding my eyes. Your parents asked me to handle some details. Consulting, I said, my voice rising. He's trying to steal this place with a shady claim. And you're meeting him behind the family's back. Cole chuckled, unfazed. Steal is a strong word. I'm simply protecting my family's legacy, tied to a deal your grandfather signed. June here understands the value of cooperation. I turned to June. Disbelief surging. You're working with him. Against Mom and Dad. Against me. June's jaw tightened. You don't understand. Lena. The Vineyard's a money pit. Your parents can't afford it. Ethan's debts are drowning us. And Clara's too busy playing perfect to care. Cole's offering a buyout enough to save us all. I'm doing what's best for the family. Best for the family. I snapped. You mean best for you? What's he paying you to betray us? Cole raised a hand, cutting in. Let's not get personal. Lena, you've got the trust, but I've got documents and June's support. Walk away now, and I'll cut you a check. Fight me, and you'll lose more than the Vineyard. I stepped closer, fury overriding fear. This isn't about money. It's about what's mine, what Grandma left me. You and June can scheme all you want, but I'm not backing down. Cole's smirk faded, his eyes cold. We'll see. He nodded to June, then slid back into his car and drove off. June started to speak, but I held up a hand. Save it, I said. You've picked your side. As she walked away, Amos appeared from the barn, his face grim. He'd overheard everything. June's always been greedy, he said. But siding with Cole, that's low. Even for her. I exhaled, my hands shaking. She's selling out the family she claims to protect, and Cole's got her in his pocket. Amos nodded. You've got the trust and the seller documents. Use them. But watch June, she's got more sway with your parents than you think. Back in Richmond, I met Marla at her office. Maya in tow. I recounted June's betrayal and Cole's latest move. Marla's expression darkened as she jotted notes. June's involvement complicates things, she said. If she's rallying your parents against you, we'll need to prove her conflict of interest. The seller documents, especially the ledger and Grandma's letter, are key. They tie Cole's claim to a nullified deal and show June's acting against the trust's intent. What about the title transfer? I asked. Filed and pending, Marla said. We're on track for approval by next week. Post-reunion. But Cole's escalating. I found his documents, a 1973 contract between your grandfather and Victor Coleman, Cole's father. It's real, but your grandmother's trust supersedes it. The problem is, June, if she convinces your family to contest the trust, it could delay the transfer. Before I could respond, Maya's phone buzzed. She gasped, showing me the screen. A local news article. Headline screaming. Hadley Vineyard heiress accused of fraud in family estate battle. The story, sourced to an anonymous family member, claimed I'd manipulated Grandma into naming me beneficiary, painting me as a greedy opportunist. Comments online were brutal, disgusting, stealing from her own family. Prayers for the Hadleys. June, I said, voice tight. Or Cole. They're trying to ruin me before I can claim the Vineyard. Marla leaned forward. This is defamation, but it's also a distraction. They want you on the defensive. Stay focused, get to the reunion. Present your evidence, and let the trust do the talking. Maya squeezed my hand. They're scared. Lena, you're winning. But winning felt hollow. The article wasn't just a lie, it was a public erasure, echoing the private ones I'd endured for years. I thought of Mom's diary entry. Lena's too much like her grandmother. Now I saw it as a badge, not a curse. That night, I drove to the cemetery where Grandma was buried, a quiet plot nestled among Virginia pines. The reunion loomed, but I needed her strength. I brought a single bottle of the Vineyard's 2010 vintage, her favorite, and sat by her headstone, the grapevine box beside me. Hey, Grandma, I said softly. They're doing it again, writing me out. Selling your legacy. But I found your letter. Your trust? You knew I'd fight, didn't you? The wind rustled the pines. A gentle answer. I poured a splash of wine onto the earth. A toast to her. You told me to save the vineyard for me. Not them. I'm trying. As I stood, my phone lit up with a text from Amos. Found something else in the cellar after you left. Old photo of your grandpa with Victor Coleman. 1973. Looks friendly, too friendly. Might explain Cole's confidence. Meet me tomorrow. I stared at the message. The vineyard's secrets piling higher. June's betrayal. Cole's claim. And now a photo tying my grandfather to Cole's father. The reunion wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. The Hadley Vineyard estate buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses as I pulled into the drive. The reunion in full swing. Fairy lights twinkled along the vineyard's stone arch, and the scent of grilled corn and oak-smoked ribs wafted from the fire pit. It was the picture-perfect family gathering I'd seen in Clara's photos minus me. My heart pounded, but the weight of Grandma's grapevine box in my bag and Marla's legal petition in my briefcase steadied me. Tonight, I wasn't crashing their party. I was claiming my legacy. Maya parked beside me, her eyes scanning the crowd. You ready for this? Lena. It's gonna be a circus. More like a courtroom, I said, gripping the briefcase. Let's go. We approached the main house, where Clara held court on the porch, wineglass in hand, regaling Aunt June and Ethan with a story. Mom stood nearby, arranging a charcuterie board. Her smile practiced. Dad was absent, likely hiding in the study with his bourbon. No one noticed me until I stepped onto the porch. Maya at my side. Clara's laughter died. Lena, what are you doing here? The crowd hushed, eyes turning to me. Mom froze, a cheese knife hovering midair. June's face paled, her glance darting to the tasting room as if expecting Cole to appear. Ethan crossed his arms, smirking. Didn't get the memo. Sis, this is a family event. I got the memo, I said, voice clear. Just not the invite. But I'm here now, and we need to talk about the vineyard. Mom set down the knife, her voice sugary but strained. Lena, dear, this isn't the time. We're celebrating. You understand? Don't you? I understand perfectly, I said, echoing her tone. I understand you're selling the vineyard without telling me. I understand you've excluded me for years. And I understand Aunt June's working with Vincent Cole to steal it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. June sputtered. That's outrageous. I'm protecting this family. Protecting, I snapped. Pulling the ledger from my briefcase, I found Grandma's records in the cellar. You've been meeting Cole? June. Pushing a sale to cover Ethan's debts while he plays king of the master suite. And Mom, your diary, 1999. You wrote I was too much like Grandma. Better kept at a distance. Mom's face crumpled. But Clara stepped forward, eyes blazing. You're digging up dirt to make this about you. Typical Lena. Always the victim. No, I said, holding up the trust document. This is about what's mine. Grandma's trust names me beneficiary. You defaulted on taxes, and the vineyard's title is transferring to me. It's legal. It's done. And Cole's claim tied to a 1973 deal Grandpa made is voided by the trust. Ethan laughed, but it was nervous. You think you can waltz in and take our home? You're delusional. It's not your home, I said, turning to the crowd. It's mine. And I'm not here to kick you out, I'm here to save it. From Cole. From June. From your own recklessness. The porch fell silent, the weight of my words sinking in. Then a slow clap broke the tension. Vincent Cole emerged from the tasting room, his coat draped over one arm. Well played, Lena. But you're missing one piece. He held up a grainy photograph Amos's find. The 1973 image of Grandpa with Victor Coleman. Cole's father, smiling like old friends. This proves my father's stake, Cole said. Your grandfather promised him half the vineyard to settle a debt. I've got the contract. And June's testimony. You can't erase history. I met his gaze. Unflinching. History. I found Grandma's letter. She nullified that deal when she set up the trust. Your contract's a relic. Cole. And June's testimony. She's betraying her own blood for your payout. June lunged forward, voice shrill. You ungrateful girl. I'm saving this family from ruin. Enough. Dad's voice boomed from the doorway. He stepped onto the porch, bourbon glass in hand, eyes weary. Lena, is this true? About the trust? I nodded, holding out the document. Read it, Dad. Grandma chose me because she knew you'd let this place slip away." He took the paper, his hands trembling. The crowd watched as he skimmed it, his face falling. "Evelyn," he said to Mom. "Did you know about this?" Mom's silence was answer enough. Clara grabbed Ethan's arm, whispering, "What do we do?" June looked to Cole, but he was already backing away. His smirk gone, Dad handed the document back. "Lena, I didn't know. I thought you just didn't want to be here." "You never asked," I said, voice steady but raw. "None of you did. But I'm done begging for a seat at your table. This vineyard is mine, and I'm keeping it." Cole stepped forward, voice low. "This isn't over. My lawyer's filing an injunction tomorrow. Enjoy your moment. Lena, it won't last." He left, the crowd parting like a sea. June stormed off, muttering about lawyers. Clara and Ethan exchanged glances, then slipped inside. Mom approached, eyes wet. "Lena, I didn't mean for it to be like this." "Then why did you write it?" I asked, holding up her diary. She had no answer, only tears. Maya squeezed my shoulder. "You did it!" "Lena, they can't ignore you now." But as the crowd dispersed, a new sound cut through the night. The screech of tires. A news van pulled up, its headlights blinding. A reporter jumped out, mic in hand. "Miss Hadley, is it true you're stealing your family's vineyard through fraud?" The article June planted had grown legs. I faced the camera, heart racing but resolute. "I'm not stealing anything. I'm reclaiming what's legally mine. Check the trust. The truth's in the documents." The reporter pressed closer, but Maya stepped in, blocking her. "Show's over. Call her lawyer if you want a quote." As we retreated to my car, Amos appeared, holding a USB drive. "Found this in the cellar with the photo," he said. "Security footage from the 90s. Might show more about your grandpa and Coleman. Could bury Cole's claim for good." I took the drive, a flicker of hope igniting. The reunion had been my battlefield, but the war wasn't over. Cole's injunction, June's schemes, and the media's lies loomed. Yet, with Dad's doubt, Grandma's trust, and Amos's evidence, I was no longer fighting alone. The Richmond courthouse stood resolute under a heavy November sky, its marble steps glistening from a morning drizzle that mirrored the tension in my chest. I walked through the double doors alone. A folder clutched tightly Marla's legal briefs, Grandma's trust, the cellar ledger, Mom's diary, and the USB drive Amos had uncovered, the reunion's fallout, June's betrayal, Vincent Cole's threats. The media's venomous lies had funneled into this moment. A hearing to finalize the vineyard's title transfer and crush Cole's injunction. My family's silence since the porch confrontation was a storm of its own. But today, the truth would break through. The courtroom was a cold, polished space, its wooden benches packed with faces I'd once called home. Clara sat in the second row, her white blazer pristine but her eyes swollen, betraying sleepless nights. Ethan slouched beside her, his usual smirk replaced by a fidgeting unease. Mom and Dad occupied the front row, Mom's hands twisting a handkerchief, Dad's gaze fixed on the judge's empty chair. June was conspicuously absent. Marla had learned she'd fled to a friend's beach house in Delaware, her alliance with Cole exposed and crumbling. Across the aisle, Vincent Cole sat with his lawyer, his tailored suit sharp but his jaw tight. The confidence of the reunion night eroded. Marla, calm and steely, leaned toward me as we settled at our table. "The USB footage is our trump card," she whispered. Amos restored it, crystal clear audio and video. "It buries Cole's claim. Your family's trickier. But the trust, ledger, and diary give us an airtight case. Stay steady." I nodded, my pulse a steady rhythm. The judge, a woman in her 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and a no-nonsense demeanor, entered and called the case. Hadley v. Cole. Petition for title transfer and injunction dismissal. Cole's lawyer, a slick man with a practiced smile, rose first. "Your Honor, my client's 1973 contract with John Hadley grants a legitimate partial claim to the Hadley Vineyard. The trust cited by Miss Hadley is a later construct, potentially fraudulent, designed to disenfranchise her family. We allege manipulation of an elderly relative for personal gain, supported by family testimony." Marla stood, her voice cutting through his insinuations. "Your Honor, the trust is notarized. dated 1975, and explicitly supersedes any prior agreements, including Mr. Cole's outdated contract. We have primary documents letters, a ledger, and video evidence proving the contract's nullification and Mr. Cole's bad faith. Furthermore, the Hadley family's systematic exclusion of Lena Hadley undermines their credibility to contest her claim. The judge adjusted her glasses. Present your evidence. Counsel. Marla signaled the bailiff, and the courtroom lights dimmed as the USB footage played on a mounted screen. The 1990s video, grainy but unmistakable, showed Grandpa and Victor Coleman, Cole's father, in the Vineyard cellar. Grandpa's voice was firm. The deal's off. Victor, Evelyn paid your loan in full. The Vineyard's ours. No strings? Coleman's face contorted, his reply venomous. You'll pay for this. John, my family won't forget. The clip ended with Coleman storming out, Grandpa rubbing his temples. Weary but resolute. Gasps echoed from the benches. Clara whispered something to Ethan, who shook his head. Cole's lawyer shifted. His notes suddenly inadequate. Marla pressed her advantage, presenting Grandma's 1975 letter. If Victor's kin come calling, use the trust. Lena's the only one I trust to keep this place whole. The ledger followed, detailing Grandma's payments to clear Grandpa's debt, nullifying Coleman's claim. Then came Mom's diary. Its 1999 entry read aloud. Lena's too much like her grandmother, stubborn, always questioning distance is best. Mom flinched, her handkerchief dropping. Clara covered her face, a sob escaping. Ethan stared at the floor, his bravado gone. Dad's hand reached for Mom's, but she pulled away, her silence louder than words. The judge's gaze swept the room, landing on Cole's lawyer. Counter evidence. The lawyer produced the 1973 contract, its faded ink a relic of a buried past. This document proves my client's stake, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Marla countered with the trust's notarized clause, signed by witnesses, rendering the contract void. The judge leaned forward, her tone final. This court finds no basis for Mr. Cole's injunction. The trust is valid. The title transfer to Lena Hadley is approved. Case dismissed. A hush fell, then a ripple of murmurs. Cole stood, his face a storm of suppressed rage, and strode out, his lawyer trailing. I exhaled, turning to Marla. It's really mine. Signed and sealed, she said, a rare smile breaking through. The Vineyard's yours. Your family's another battle. But that's not for a courtroom. Outside, the media swarmed, their cameras a gauntlet. The same reporter from the reunion shoved a mic in my face. Miss Hadley, did you defraud your family to steal their legacy? I faced her, the folder still in my hands, and spoke clearly. The court saw the truth. My grandmother entrusted the Vineyard to me because she knew I'd protect it. Ask my family why they tried to sell it without a word to me. Ask them about their secret deals with Vincent Cole. The crowd parted as Dad approached, his bourbon-weathered face etched with regret. Lena, I didn't know about the trust. Or your mom's diary. I thought you'd just drifted away. You let me drift, I said, voice steady but raw. You stopped answering my calls. Stopped inviting me. You chose their story over mine. He looked down, his voice cracking. I failed you. I let Evelyn and June call the shots. I should have fought for you. His words pierced, but they didn't erase the years of silence. You should have, I said. But I'm not waiting for you to fix it. I've built something without you. Clara joined us, her eyes wet but defiant. Lena, I didn't know Grandma chose you. I thought you didn't care about us. Always in Richmond. Always working. I was wrong. Okay. Wrong doesn't cut it, I said, holding her gaze. You laughed in group chats, erased me from photos. Let June sell our home. You chose to believe I was the problem. Ethan stepped up, hands in his pockets, his voice low. We messed up, Lena, but you didn't have to drag us through court. Make us look like fools. You made yourselves fools. I snapped. You defaulted on taxes, racked up debts, and let June scheme with Cole. I saved the Vineyard for Grandma, not you. Mom lingered behind, her silence a weight. I held up her diary, its pages a mirror of her choices. Why? Mom, why write that I was better off gone? She swallowed, voice barely audible. I thought you were stronger than us. I thought pushing you away would protect the family's image. I was wrong. Lena. I'm sorry. Her apology hung there. Fragile but real. I didn't forgive her, not yet. Sorry doesn't undo a decade, I said. But I'm not closing the door. You'll have to earn your way back. Maya appeared, her grin a lifeline. You owned that courtroom? Lena. Now let's ditch these vultures and celebrate. As we turned to leave, Amos caught my arm, his eyes urgent. One more thing, he said, handing me a sealed envelope from the cellar, found with the USB. Your grandma left this for you, said to open it when the fight was won. Back at the vineyard that evening, I sat on the porch, the envelope in my lap. The fairy lights were gone, but the vines shimmered under a crescent moon. Maya and Amos joined me. A bottle of the 2010 vintage opened between us. I broke the wax seal, my hands steady now. Inside was a single page in Grandma's script, dated the year before her death. Lena, if you're reading this, you've saved the vineyard. But there's one last secret. Your grandfather had a son, your half-uncle, Thomas. Born in 72. I sent him away to protect the family. Gave him a small plot of land upstate. Vincent Cole knows. Used it to pressure me. Thomas is gone now. But his daughter, your cousin, may come looking. If she does, share the vines. Your family. Even when it hurts. I stared at the letter. The weight of a hidden cousin sinking in. Cole had known about Thomas. Leveraged it to bolster his claim. Grandma's choice to hide a son echoed Mom's choice to push me away. Both rooted in a warped sense of protection. I handed the letter to Maya, who whistled. Your family's got more secrets than a soap opera. Amos nodded. Thomas was a good kid. Left before you were born. If his daughter shows up, she's got a right to know you. I didn't know how to feel anger at another secret, or hope for a new connection. But it was a question for another day. For now, the vineyard was mine, its roots deep and unbroken. 3 weeks later, I stood in the vineyard's tasting room, now rebranded as Hadley Heritage Wines. The first public event was days away, with Amos overseeing the vines and Maya designing the marketing. I'd hung the cellar's wind chime on the porch, its shells clinking softly, a tribute to Grandma's unfinished project with me at 8. The media had shifted. New articles praising the vineyard's revival under a visionary heiress. June remained in Delaware, her reputation tarnished. Cole had vanished, his claim dead, his son sending a quiet apology via email. Dad called twice, leaving voicemails about rebuilding trust. I saved them, unready to respond. Clara sent a package, a photo of us as kids, unedited, with a note. Can we start over? I kept it on my desk. Maybe. Mom wrote a letter, her words raw but distant. I filed it away, her diary still too fresh. As dusk settled, I walked the vineyard's rows, the grapevine box in my hands. I stopped by the barn, where my faded mural still clung to the wood. Maya found me, carrying 2 glasses of the 2010 vintage. To you, Lena, she toasted, the woman who turned betrayal into triumph. I raised my glass, the wine catching the last light. To Grandma, to the vines, and to us. The wind chime sang, its notes weaving into the night. I wasn't just the vineyard's keeper, I was its heart, grown through silence, secrets, and strength. My family had tried to erase me, but I'd carved my name into the earth, not with their approval, but with my own.